You're listening to the MLCC On the Road podcast, brought to you by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, with hosts Sarah Weber and David Marvin. Welcome back to the MLCC On the Road podcast. I'm David Marvin, and with me today is Sarah Weber. Today we're recording at Detroit City Distillery, where the MLCC On the Road team is hosting a live event for licensees from around the area. And on this episode, we have two special guests joining us. Sarah, please introduce our special guests for the podcast today.
Thank you, David. I would like to introduce our first special guest, the chair of the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, Kristin Beltzer. Kristin was appointed to the commission in April of 2022 and named the chair in June of 2023. Our second special guest is Neal Insley. Neal is the president and CEO of the National Alcohol Beverage Control Association, which we commonly call NABCA. He has served in this role since October 2021. As you may recall, our very first episode, a grant from NABCA helped fund the MLCC On the Road program and this podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. To change up our typical format a bit, Sarah and I are going to turn over the host job to Kristin for a conversation with Neal. We are excited to hear from Kristin and Neal about the important role that the control states, like Michigan, play in the alcoholic beverage industry, and how NABCA assists member states as they work towards safe, responsible, and effective regulation of alcohol. Kristin and Neal, welcome to the MLCC On the Road podcast.
Thank you so much, Dave and Sarah. I'm Kristin Beltzer. I am chair of the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, and I'm happy to be guest hosting today on the MLCC On the Road podcast. As you heard in the introduction, Neal Insley is the president and CEO of the National Alcohol Beverage Control Association, also called NABCA. He and his team are true champions of the 17 control states that regulate the distribution and sale of alcoholic beverages. It's so great to have Neal in Michigan. He's doing just a championship job, and we welcome him here to the Detroit City Distillery today. Neal, so great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining me.
Kristin, it is great to be here in the Motor City. I have enjoyed my one day here. It seems like I've been here for 3. I'll pack so much in. Just a great place to be. Love being up here in Michigan, and great venue here to host this podcast. Really looking forward to the discussion.
Absolutely. You know, we have been trying to plan this for quite a while. Good to have you here finally. Michigan is beautiful in the summer, as you got to experience last night. And so let's talk a little bit about NABCA and the organization itself, and really kind of what you do and the help that you provide the control states and really industry stakeholders too.
Absolutely. Well, first I say, people, when they talk about my title and CEO, I jokingly tell people I'm head of laundry and morale when it comes down to it. But no, NABCA is a storied organization. We've been around since the end of Prohibition, getting ready to celebrate our 90th annual conference in 2027. So exciting things. And we've been able to do that because of the support of our board of directors and our control jurisdictions that make up our organization. As far as NABCA, we are a 501c6 nonprofit. We are not an advocacy organization, so we don't lobby. We're non-advocacy. We pride ourselves in maintaining that straight and narrow, if you will, and providing just the facts. Some of my younger staff don't quite get the joke about, the Joe Friday, but that's really who we are. I mean, we're just the facts, and we've carved out a very special niche within the data world in particular because of the fact that people know when they get NABCA data, it's unfettered, it's not biased, it's going to be accurate, and the data says what the data says. Policy says what it says. It's not our job to manipulate or try and fit it to a certain narrative. Our job is to make sure it's clean and it's usable for our stakeholders and members.
And really, the data collection has really kind of taken off. You've really kind of set NABCA apart from everybody else in terms of the product that you deliver. How are you hearing from people that it's advantageous and the kind of feedback that you're getting?
It has been incredible, just really since my term. So a bit of my history, I started my career in law enforcement in a moment of indiscretion, for some reason, decided to go to law school nights and weekends and became an attorney. I'm now a recovering attorney. But I did serve as chair of the Virginia ABC appointed by the governor, like yourself, and did that for 4 years until I was unappointed. But that's that's part of the game. I was very fortunate to then take a position after having served as chair of NABCA to be their senior vice president and general counsel for NABCA for starting in 2015. And then, as you said, in 2021, probably in their moment of indiscretion, they put me in as CEO, but I certainly have enjoyed it. But just even from that time, just watching the maturation of our data products and what we're doing, we are in the midst of a massive tech stack operation right now where we're really, after almost 3 decades, really just redoing our infrastructure on our data. We've partnered with SAS or SAS out of North Carolina. They're a globally recognized data company, but they don't sell data. They're data infrastructure. So we've partnered with them. Really excited. We're hoping in October we'll start to do our parallel processing. We're still operating in our current system, our legacy system, and we'll continue to do that until such time as we feel comfortable that we can successfully do that cutover. But the opportunities that we'll have in this new platform, very powerful platform, it's exciting. It really is, and it's really going to change the shape of NABCA, its dynamics, and what it can offer. And when I say data, we're building it out robust enough that over time, and we've got several phases of this project. This obviously is phase 1. But it won't just be sales data. We're also looking at collecting we already collect policy data, regulatory data, things like that. The problem is compiling and maintaining and having it in a workable, searchable function. So ultimately, all of that information will be incorporated in this platform to just have more offerings for our stakeholders that need information to help develop policy, business strategies, all of these things that they rely on our data day-to-day to accomplish.
You've really called it like the internal engine of NABCA, and you're really it's branching out into other sectors, isn't it? Like financial institutions, private equity firms, and how are they using this information?
They found that our data is, because it's so granular and it's so accurate, we can really, they can use it to go beyond the control jurisdiction. So when they look at the data set, say for sales trends, they can kind of extrapolate that out and kind of help predict where the trends may be going, and use that data as kind of that base point, if you will, to really monitor how the market is doing. But even beyond that, with some of the larger data companies or hedge funds and private equity firms, they also look at certain sectors and categories within consumer goods to kind of see how things are doing. So, alcohol is a good measure of how the overall economy may be doing, for instance. And they use it for those purposes as well. So, it kind of covers the gamut. I jokingly say all the time that NABCA was big data before big data. We started collecting data for the states way back. And we didn't really look at it as a product or monetize it until we were going into the 90s, early 90s. But I think people forget or don't know that the monetization, of course, is great because it allows us to do these wonderful awards that we do with the states and assist in policy and alcohol education, prevention, these things that are core to our mission as a nonprofit. But fundamentally, the reason that the data was initially stored by NABCA or captured by NABCA was to ensure our control jurisdictions' accuracy of their own data. We were kind of the custodians of that information on how they were doing, what they were doing, because they wanted entrusted in their association that they knew, as I said earlier, is always going to be, down the middle of the fairway, and not pressured either way in how that data is perceived or applied. So it's been exciting.
I think so. And, when we have opportunities, the board of directors, to get together and to hear from your team, the Dave Jacksons of the world and everybody who just wants to, they are so energized by all of this and what's to come. How about like universities? Is there any kind of space there for, now that there's NIL agreements and all sorts of things like that, is there a space for NABCA to work within that type of an arena?
Yeah, we are. We currently are, and we have for some time. I think since 2015, we've done projects with over 30 different universities across the country. We typically, and it ranges. I mean, I pulled the numbers a while back, or just kind of looking down the list, and we've assisted in projects with our institutions of higher education, and they range from I think it's Walton Community College to Harvard Business School, and just the gamut in between. Actually, here in Michigan, we've supported and done a few projects with University of Michigan and Michigan State. So we find that is core to kind of our policy side of our mission, and to make sure that people are using good data to make we're not going to get involved in what you decide to do ultimately. We just want to make sure that policymakers or research institutions are using the best data that they can to make those decisions or form those opinions. And it's exciting stuff, and it's core to our mission. So, yes, we will continue to work with universities and colleges. We always try to be understanding of their position with our data. Again, because we're nonprofit, we have to cover the expense of manpower, but if it's no lift for us and we can provide it, typically we will. If it does require some work on our end, we will work with the university to try and reach an agreement on how best to get that data where we're not expending a lot of resource and can recapture some of that. But by and large, we work with the universities because it's important to us, again, in our mission to make sure that we know they're relying on good data to formulate those opinions or hypotheses, all of these things. It's critical, the work they do. And they have done some great work. I saw a study not too long ago related to breast cancer, and fetal alcohol syndrome is another one that some of the universities worked on. So real substantive public health, public safety work.
Yeah, that's great. I see that, as you mentioned, Michigan State and U of M, and Michigan is the largest control state in dollar sales. Tell me, what kind of impact does that have on the industry as a whole?
Well, I think anytime, certainly, your hot producers, your large markets gain a lot of attention. They're important markets because of their size. And companies, and this is something we preach to some of our jurisdictions and different members in supplying the data, it's critically important because, in particular in the business setting, because, business need good data points. If they have good data points, they will invest in certain markets. If it's an uncertainty or they're having a hard time really getting, clarity on what the market is, they may not make those same investments. Certainly in Michigan, with the data and the size of the market, a lot of investment goes into Michigan, and great partnerships is another part of this. I don't need to tell you, but this is a relationship industry. Across the board, whether you're wearing your regulator hat, your business hat, your licensing, you have to have good relationships with your stakeholders and your business partners. And certainly here in Michigan, it's a large market. There's opportunity, obviously, for investment here. There's good numbers to rely on that investment, and there's good working relationships with industry. So it's a strong market there, and it's a large market.
Well, we, have over 14,000 spirit products. I think that is probably the largest offerings. How does it compare to other states, though, in terms of kind of what they do? Because when we get together and we talk a lot of times, it's not like apples to apples at all. You know what I mean? I hear from other people, and the work that they're doing is great, and it's important as well. It's just they're on different scales. And so is there any kind of pushback at all on any of that in terms of, do you think that it can be too big?
Yeah, and here's the beauty of the control markets and how it fits in with the 21st Amendment. And I know this is going to get a bit, I'm a bit of a constitutional geek, or I like to think I am, but the 21st Amendment, fundamentally it they envisioned that because we are such a vast country and priorities and responsibilities and morals and all these things are so different in this wonderful melting pot that we have as a country, the diversity is great. It's what makes us so strong. That being said, and again, the beauty of the 21st Amendment is what might work here in Michigan and be very successful is probably or may not work in Mississippi so whether it was envisioned that way or just happened by default, we've certainly seen it within the control markets. There are no two control markets that are just alike. They all have different nuances, different priorities, different populations, and they have to respond to their stockholders or constituents or voters like everybody else. And that helps develop that system in that market the way that the people want that system or market. So I would say, certainly as far as SKUs, Michigan is the largest, followed by North Carolina and then Virginia for active SKUs. So but there are other states that have different listing procedures and things that do things differently. And that reflects what that market, what those folks who, at the end of the day, the people own the system. And again, I say this all the time, our control markets have gotten really good at doing business. And they, but at the end of the day, they're not reporting to shareholders who are just driven by profit. The shareholders of the system are the citizens of that jurisdiction. And the money goes back to them. It goes back to, in some cases, very vital services, education. It goes to fire and police and, all of these very important infrastructure projects for highways and things like that. So the system helps support that community, but at the end of the day, that community owns that system.
You're absolutely right, and I kind of set you up on that one because, we think that type of offering is advantageous, and it works for us. And so I want to jump over, you just mentioned education, and, that is so important to us, too. Matter of fact, later today, we're going to have an opportunity to bring some folks in and talk to them a little bit about the licensing and how to get into business. Talk a little bit, I've heard you say before, and I love this line about we don't just license and walk away. I love that because that's exactly how we feel here, that it is an ongoing process on education all the time. We're trying to do so much of this much more upfront and give people an opportunity to understand a little bit before they get into it. Our team has just done a wonderful job in terms of getting out into communities and talking to people and letting them understand the nuances of this because there are so many different options for them. But talk a little bit about that in terms of kind of commerce meeting public health and the things that NABCA talks about and preaches about all the time.
Absolutely. We filed an amicus brief several years ago in a Supreme Court case that went, first one since Granholm, actually, to go to the Supreme Court, the Tennessee Retailers case. We put in our amicus brief exactly what you're talking about. The control systems are the pivot point on the scales between commerce and public health and safety. Ideally, those are balanced all the time. What keeps them balanced is that the MLCCs, those regulatory licensing control systems that maintain that balance. So it is vitally important. The more balanced those are, the stronger, in my opinion, the stronger the system. But that comes to your point with a lot of effort and work in outreach, education, and compliance. And when I was in Virginia, you're right, I did used to, that was my, we don't license and leave. We are here for the people, for the jurisdictions, for the licensee themselves. And ultimately the goal is compliance. You often hear people talk about regulation, over-regulation. I would say the biggest problem is not necessarily over-regulation as much as it is inconsistent regulation. And that's where you really start to run into the problems, where some may know the ins and outs and others don't. Or, some may, be favored and some, others aren't. When you have that consistently applied policy and regulation, it helps all markets. It produces consistency, predictability, and business loves that. What makes them suffer is when it's hard to understand. There's people that they can't ask questions of. That's where things will start to fall off and go awry. So you folks here have done a wonderful job. This is a great, example of that, in getting out and having that community outreach, that transparency, answering questions as it relates to their license, their livelihoods, where they fit within the market, within the three-tier system, the importance of all of those things. It just makes for a strong system, and it gets that buy-in from the stakeholders that they all feel like they're going to be heard, and they know who they can call and ask if they have a question, and they're going to get an answer. And if there is inconsistency or an issue with transparency, then that's the job of leadership to make sure that it is resolved. But you'll never know unless you ask the questions, and you folks are really good at getting out and asking the questions.
Well, we agree that it's been an opportunity for us to, one, kind of get out from, being in an office where people don't see each other. You just said it a few minutes ago about relationships and building relationships with people. And we wanted them to get out and see that, our team members are people just like they are. You know what I mean? They're, trying to get their kids around and do sorts of things during the day and help out their families and that kind of thing. So, we wanted to make sure that we could kind of put a name and face to this, and that getting out with people. And, now we have people who we have actually assisted, and then they tell their friends, and then those people call us now too. So it really has worked very, very favorably. And we feel that we've been able to make a lot of headway so that they're not getting tripped up in the application process. And everybody's winning so much better that way in terms of the education. In regards to education and things that are going to change going forward, how do you see artificial intelligence playing into all of this?
Some could argue, we probably ought to get the I down before we really concentrate on it. But no, it is certainly one of those X factors, if you will, that everybody should be thinking of. And I've read quite a bit on it. One thing that I saw that really just kind of put it in perspective for me was one of the experts in the field. She had written a great article, and she was talking about how much, for my generation, thinking about my two claims to fame and my age are, I went to college before the internet, and my first issued weapon in law enforcement was a revolver. So, but, having gone to college before the internet and then seeing how much the internet changed the world. And this particular expert was saying, AI could be tenfold what we experienced, most of us in our generation, with the introduction of the internet. So if you think about that, it's massive. And it's certainly something that we are looking at NABCA. As I said, we're building out our tech stack. Part of that ultimately will be that machine learning, AI tools incorporated in it through the SaaS platform to help our customers and stakeholders better leverage and use our data. But it's going to be everywhere, and it certainly we're going to continue to see it in our sector, in the alcohol industry, beverage alcohol. We'll certainly, and we do have companies already that are using AI and are continuing to develop and see how far they can use it, mostly on kind of that business intelligence, business analytics side. But once you start to talk about its use in policy and things like that, it's going to be exciting, and of course a little scary, because any new technology, you have to have good borders around it and make sure that it's being used properly and not being abused, or all of these things that we're going to have to figure out.
One of the things I just so admire about you and your leadership and your team is this open-mindedness, this vision, this opportunity to get better all the time, and to really be that resource for the control states and others. I mean, you guys want to be the go-to, and you are, and I so admire it. How do you see or what is the potential for growth with NABCA going forward? What does some of this look like in terms of some of the goals that you and the team have? And what does NABCA look like over the next 5-10 years?
That's a great question. I don't want to get ahead of things too much, but we internally, my executive team, we've got a retreat coming up where we're going to be talking a lot about that, particularly with our coming capabilities in our tech stack and some of these other things. But, NABCA has been, like I said, a storied organization for many, many years, go-to, very stable, very trusted. But we do not and cannot rest on our laurels. You can't think that, okay, well, I came this far and that's all I need to do. You always need to be looking at what is next. And there will be a NABCA Next Gen, and it will, incorporate a lot of these things that we're seeing, that are going to be of value to our stakeholders in the future, on the data end, on the policy end, on research, all of these things that we're going to have to and will be involved in. But yeah, NABCA is it's at a stage now where we're really going to have to, we're very fortunate. We have a great supportive board to start making some of this transition. But it's going to be an incredible opportunity, and we are going to have to kind of re-envision ourselves as well as we move into the future to maintain relevant. When NABCA first started collecting data way back, it was, as I said, we were kind of big data before big data. The data market has just become so competitive, and we can't rest on our laurels that, well, we have information that. No, we have to make sure that we are staying up with and ahead of people in our sectors to make sure that the data that we provide is always going to be relevant, and it's going to be timely, and it's going to be in formats that our stakeholders can use with ease. So, that's where we want to go. I'm not going to, again, I don't want to get too far out on my skis, but it is actively, we just redid our strategic plan, as you know. And a lot of that is kind of baked into that as we went through our SWOT analysis and all of these things. There are a lot of headwinds in our industry. The big question about, are they systematic, are they secular, that's some will, some won't, but that's what we're trying to navigate now as well for the NABCA of the future.
Well, I got to tell you, Neal, I so enjoy the opportunity to be on the NABCA Board of Directors. A shout out to all of my fellow board members, because they are great people. I'm looking forward to seeing them here in the next couple of months. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you to talk about the great work that you're doing. We appreciate you coming to Michigan. We're proud of the work that we're doing. I want to say thank you to Sarah Weber and to Dave Marvin again for letting me be a guest host on the MLCC On the Road podcast. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and we are looking forward to being with you in the future.
Well, thank you so much. I have certainly enjoyed my time here, and as I say, we are a resource for all of our stakeholders All you have to do is ask, and we will try and find a way to get you what you need.
You bet, Neal. Thank you so much.
The MLCC On the Road podcast is brought to you by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. For more information on the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, please visit our website at www.michigan.gov/LCC. Thank you for listening.